Welcome and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. My name is Constantine, I'll be your host, and today we are painting the 7th page of the Cute Dogs watercolor coloring book that I make. It's all handmade, I use lithographs, and I make it all myself. So if you're here because you purchased it from me, thank you, I really appreciate that. And if you just want to paint along with us, if you haven't bought the book, it'll be in the description if you're interested. Otherwise, just feel free to pause the video, sketch out what we're painting, and then proceed whenever you're ready. And with that, let's move over to the drawing table. Okay, so this is the image that we are painting today. It is just a cute little German Shepherd puppy. And then I always recommend having a little, I use a soap dish, but any plate works. Just, it's better if it's porcelain or glass, just because they clean off very easily. If you're using my paints, if you bought them from me, they are completely non-toxic. There's only 3 ingredients in them. It's gum arabic, pigment, and glycerin. And if you're interested in purchasing one of my little palettes, it'll be in the description as well. Any brush works. This is a very cheap 16-cent brush from Walmart. I bought it in a packet of, I think it was like 5 or 6 brushes in for like $2. It was very cheap. I used this brush just to illustrate that any brush is completely fine. You don't have to spend a ton of money on a watercolor brush, even though I do that sometimes. That's because I've been painting for years and it's just I spoil myself sometimes, but you don't really need to worry about that. Just any brush works. And then also having a scrap piece of paper also works. It doesn't have to be watercolor paper. Just the main reason I use these is because sometimes I like to shape the tip of the brush, also just to get some excess pigment off of the brush. That's really the main reasons I use a scrap piece of paper. But that also isn't necessarily needed if you're comfortable painting without it. So for this one, the light will be coming from the top, so it'll be top down. So a lot of this area, some shadow down here, and also over here, the underbelly, and yeah, let's get painting. So, oh, I also have a jar of water on the side. That's where I dip my water, or my brush in. So basically we will start off with some kind of like a beige color. So German Shepherds have, I really like the markings on them. There's a lot of beige, some black, and also some brown that kind of like varies in the color itself, like some variations of brown. Excuse me. So basically just get a bunch of the yellow ochre. And if you're using your own paints at home, you don't have this exact paint, basically getting some yellow and some brown and maybe some white and kind of like playing around with them will help you get to the desired color. And since this is the initial wash, we want a bunch of pigment, but we also want a lot of water, because the initial wash, we always want it to be a little lighter. We don't want to add too much pigment. Because then that'll help us have some lighter areas when we go in and add shadows and some variations in color. Okay, so basically we are just gonna go ahead and start. We're going to cover all of this, the paws, the legs. I'm gonna go up like this. Basically everything up until here underneath the muzzle is what we are covering. All of this. I try to be a little quick about it so that there's no marks left, because I want it to be an even wash. The quicker you do washes like this, the better they turn out. But if you mess up or go outside the line or get a little bit of texture in there, that's all of it is perfectly fine. It's not a big deal. Okay. Cover all that. Okay, there we go. And now we are going to add a little bit of a mark right there. Those cute little eyebrows or markings that they have that look like eyebrows for the German Shepherds. Right there. Also a little bit in the ears, like that. Not entirely, just a little sliver, just to show some variation there. That's pretty much it. Now there are a lot of black spots throughout the coat, as well as the tail and the face, but we want to add some variation in there. Initially, we are just going to add brown. It's going to do a wash of brown color. And you'll see, as we progress, you'll see how the layering helps. The cool thing that I like about watercolor is you can have the exact same color twice, but if you have an undercolor, a different color that was layered underneath, the exact same color will look different. So there, it adds variation. It can help make the image itself look more interesting. I'm gonna grab a little bit of dark blue to mix in with the brown so that it gets a little less orange looking, a little more earthy brown. Also darken it up a little bit. Okay, so then for that, we're gonna go like this. I'm gonna avoid the little eyebrows. Try not to blend it in. If you get a little bit in there, it's fine. I'm leaving a little spot right there because I realized that that's also supposed to be more of the tan, yellow ochre color. And then just kind of going around the eyebrow. Okay. And grabbing some more color, going right in. So this little spot and this little spot, I'm leaving those white because I'm just gonna go in with some more yellow ochre. I forgot to do that initially. No, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. And just keep trucking. Okay, and then we add that in here. Okay, so all that. And don't worry, this side will dry up to look more like the side on the right. As it dries, it becomes much lighter, as I'm sure you're aware if you're already on page 7. Okay. And you know, I was debating whether or not to add the brown in the muzzle because we will have to make it more black or much darker. But we're going to do it anyway just because it does help. We're not going to do the nose, but we are just going to do all of the muzzle around the nose. The reason being is it does make, when you layer in darker colors, especially, it helps if there's a color underneath, it'll help set the tone. So what I mean to say is that black can sometimes look more on the green side, or more on the blue side, or more brownish, or grayish. It's really interesting if you experiment how you can kind of change the tone. It'll be the same color, but the tone is, you can shift it a little bit, which just gives it variation, and that's always interesting to look at. Variation in a painting is a good thing. If you add variation in light and dark, variation in texture, strokes, maybe some splatters, all of that can add a lot to a painting, but you have to be comfortable doing it, and it does take a little bit of practice. Which is good, because there's 10 pages in the book, and you get plenty of chances to practice. Okay, so now we're going to mix up a little more of the brown and get some brown. Remember, your colors don't have to look exactly as mine do. Part of the reason for that is every time you mix a color, you are almost never going to mix the exact same amount of brown or blue or the exact same amount of water, so there is variability, and that's totally fine as long as you get comfortable with how you're laying down the colors. Okay, and then we're going to add a little more water. So this, we want it to be a little more diluted. We don't want it to be heavily pigmented. So what we'll do is we're going to do some strokes going around, kind of like in a oval pattern, to show some of the marks. So there's more out here on the side, on the back of the dog. As I'm sure you've noticed, German Shepherds have lighter underbellies and darker fur on their backs, but they do kind of have like some areas that are kind of like stripy almost. That's kind of what we're going for here, just kind of like that. Just kind of like quick short strokes to show some pattern, some texture, you know, emphasize that it's fur. It's not just we're not just doing a flat wash, because then it'll look like a harness or something. We want to add some strokes in there to show that there's fur. And a little bit right here on the side. Okay, going back on the tail, so kind of like on the top like that. And we are going to leave a lighter spot underneath. So this is just kind of like on top. We will also use these as a guide whenever we start laying down darker colors, and kind of we can emphasize some of the markings. Go like that. A little bit on the side here on this leg. Maybe like that. Okay. And also just a little bit over here on this side. Just like that. So far so good. We're gonna rinse off our brush. Now then, we want to mix a darker tone of the yellow ochre, which is what we will be using for the shadows. The way that we'll do that is we'll grab a bunch of this. We're going to mix it in a new area because we still want to keep our original. Oh, actually, before we do that, almost forgot about these two little spots up here. I'm just going to grab some and then just go right in. There we go, like that. Okay, there we go. Now rinse off my brush. They look a little weird because of how saturated they are right now, but again, remember, they'll dry off and it'll look much lighter. Now then, actually, I'm also going to fill in the nose so that by the time we get to it, it'll be dry. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of black, kind of dilute it, and then maybe grab just a little bit of dark blue, just so that it's not a pure gray. So this is an undertone that we're putting here. Just gonna go right there. Got a little hair sticking out of my brush. Okay, so obviously we will darken this nose a lot more. I mean, a lot more. This is basically just so that we can have some variation, like maybe a highlight up here to show where the light is hitting, you know, make the bottom darker. You'll see what I mean. We'll take it slow. Okay, so yes, back to the yellow ochre. I'm gonna grab a bunch of yellow ochre. And grab a little bit of dark blue. So that's maybe a little too dark. Let me see. Yeah, I'll grab a little more of the yellow, just kind of blend it in. So, you know, that's fine. We'll just grab extra water just to make sure that it's more diluted so it doesn't come out as strong. And so for this, since the light is coming from top, the shadow, a lot of the shadow will be down here, the shadow down here, like this. And feel free to make kind of like some strokes just to show, to go with the pattern of the fur. And then we're also going to grab some for down here, like that. And you can do just a couple of short strokes here and there. The bristles of the fur, or I guess the hairs of the fur, they cast a shadow as well. So that can be used to show the texture. See, maybe a little underneath the ear. The color itself that we mixed is too light to show up properly on the brown areas, so we're just not gonna worry about that. We will darken up those colors later on. Okay, so this we're just gonna go like that. And then to make the shadow on the foot here, or on the paw, I guess, to make the transition a little smoother, I'm just going to rinse off my brush and then dry off my brush and then just kind of go like this. I'm just going to pick up some of that pigment and then see how that helps add a smoother transition. It's not just a harsh line, it's more of a gradient. That's what we're going for there. And then we're going to grab on the inside of this leg, we're going to grab some of that shadow color. We'll go and fill it in like this. And then just a little bit like that, just to show the fold of the paw. Same with this one. This one's actually a little more, I guess, enveloped in shadow because of the angle, and then just a little bit there for the the fold of the paw. And you don't have to do a soft shadow transition like I did over here. You can add just some harsher shadows. It actually makes the piece look more interesting when there's, again, variation. And then on this one, right here, okay, dry off my brush, maybe pick up a little bit just to make it a little smoother of a transition of the shadow. Okay. And remember, you can always stop and take a step back just to look at it from a distance. It helps, instead of being up close to it, it helps kind of get a better idea of how the piece is developing. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay. And I'm also going to mix up a shadow that will be on the ground where the puppy is sitting. And the shadow itself is going to be kind of forward, maybe at a slight slant. Like, let's see if there's like, if the light is like right here. It's still coming pretty much from straight down, but just a slight angle, which will shift the shadow of the puppy a little to the left. So we're gonna grab a little bit of black. That's probably enough. A little bit of dark blue. A little more. Okay, that's good. And then we're just gonna go like this. So the puppy, it's kind of sitting on its leg right here, so the shadow will be something like this. And then pulling it down this way. Okay, just like that. And maybe if you press down hard on the paper and then just rub in the brush, it'll give you that texture as the shadow kind of dissolves away from the light. So give you that. There you go. Something like that. Pretty good so far. Okay, now we can start mixing up some of the darker colors for the markings of the fur and for the muzzle. The muzzle itself is much darker, so we'll go ahead and we'll get some of this black, but this time we'll also grab a little bit of brown. Although it'll be much different from that color, it'll still look more like it belongs, just because it has a shade of brown in it and there's a lot of brown in the coloring, in the overall colors of the puppy. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and add that in. Just a straight flat wash all around. Now obviously there's still a lot of brown, so it just looks like a very dark brown muzzle, and that's okay. So we're also going to use this same color to kind of go in a little bit and add some texture. and shadow, actually, because this looks like a very good color for shadow to put right on the areas where it's black, like that. A little bit of right here, underneath the eyebrow. Because with German Shepherds, it's not just an abrupt stop where the muzzle ends. The pattern itself kind of spreads out. So I'm just gonna rinse my brush, dry it off, and then just kind of soften up those edges like that. I encourage you to look up a reference image of German Shepherds. You can see kind of how like their patterns, although they differ from dog to dog, they look interesting in how they spread out, and then the colors just kind of blend in from one to the next. It's not just an abrupt stop. And then I'm gonna get a little more brown. Brown right here. And I am gonna dull it down just a little bit with the dark blue. So now we can use that for the patterns. Just maybe adding like a little more color there. Not everywhere, just maybe on the back. Just a couple of strokes here and there. Might need to get a little more pigment. Okay, so a little bit like that. On the back of the tail. A little bit down here. A little bit around the leg. And back here. And up here, underneath the eyebrow. I will be repeating a lot in the face, just because there's a lot of variability in the face. Okay, on this side, do a little more. It's moving along, slowly but surely. We'll go ahead and mix up a little more black, and then maybe get some of this brown in here to mix it up with. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of lay that down here as a shadow, but it'll be kind of like this, where it shows where the darker part is. Maybe a little bit of a suggestion here for the, just leave a little bit of light there to show where they are, where they're differing. The upper and the lower part of the muzzle, that is. Maybe just a little bit of line right there. And then the nose itself definitely needs to be, the whole nose itself needs to be darkened a lot. Get some water. Okay, I'm gonna use my scrap piece of paper here. Okay, that's fine. So we're just gonna darken the nose. That's better. Grab a little more. Excuse me. I've been feeling a little under the weather last couple of days. I'm just gonna grab a little more brown and just kind of put some here. This is much darker now. Really trying to emphasize some contrast in different areas. You'll see how it definitely makes other parts pop. It gives them a lot more, the contrast really makes some parts of the fur pop, and it just looks very interesting. It gives the viewer a lot more to look at, because it takes a while for them to decipher how things are put together. Like that. And it starts bringing out some definition. Maybe just a couple of strokes here and there to show the fur. Okay. Looking pretty good, but we definitely want to continue to darken the muzzle itself. So we're just gonna grab a little more of this, put some black in here. And maybe do a little bit of an outline. Do a little bit of an outline on the outside, maybe some short strokes. Down here. Okay. And darken the nose a little bit too. Just give it like a shadow. There we go. That helps kind of sell the point that there's light up here, but there's shadow underneath the chin, because the light is coming straight from the top, so there's shadow down here, and then under the belly. We can actually also bump up the shadows under the belly on the fur. So mix it in with the darker yellow ochre that you had, mix in some of that black and brown. It'll give you something like this, which is a much stronger shadow. A little under between the toes, maybe a couple excuse me, a couple of strokes here and there to show again the fur down here, like that. And then here under the pads, and here on the side a little bit, just a little bit, a couple of short strokes like that, and then that, and then some over here, and really just kind of emphasizing, kind of bumping up the shadows. I'm gonna actually just do a little bit down here like that. There we go. That's better. It helps separate the top of the head from the bottom much better. And also we can do the same dark brown yellowish color for the ears. There we go. Right here. Maybe a little bit underneath the eyebrows. And then just some texture. Okay, and step back for a moment. Okay, pretty good. What we're gonna do next is mix in the eye color. You want to get some brown, and we're gonna make this dark, so they're dark brown. So some brown, some blue. Oh, that's a lot of blue. That's too much blue. Dark blue and brown. Try to get that nice dark brown color. Okay, so that looks good. We're gonna go right in, and I'm gonna go over the pupil when we lay this in. Leave the highlight in there. Don't paint over it. Try my best not to let my hand go in front of the camera here, even though I really want to. Okay, there we go. So just cover those in and then let them dry. You rinse off your brush, and then I'm just going to grab some black. Grab some more black and kind of mix it in here with the color that you have. Grab a little more black. I'm trying to get a really dark, kind of like dark tan, brown kind of mix. So the reason being is I'm actually just going to go in and do a couple of outlines. So like right here, just a little bit like that. A little bit underneath the pads. A little bit of short strokes here to show the fur, kind of like that. A little bit on the inside of the paw. So I'm kind of trying to do this sporadically, not a outline everywhere, but just where there's some difficulty differentiating the details. Like up here a little bit. Maybe a couple of strokes like that. Over here for the face, or some of the hairs in the face, like that. Then definitely the muzzle itself, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of an outline. Just go slowly. Maybe a little more black, kind of mix it in, mixture of the colors, and then kind of go in like that. In for the nostrils. Maybe give underneath the nose a little bit of an outline. There we go. It does not have to be all over. You don't have to do it everywhere. And then just gonna grab just some straight black, just basically like you're using ink. And what this is for is right in for the pupils, right in the middle. Just go slowly. And then for the other one, and And you're pretty much done. I'm just going to give a little bit of an outline on top of the eye, just so that the eye is a little more visible. Oh, don't mess up, don't mess up. And on the other one, there we go. And then also that deep black, that just like almost ink-like black that we're just getting, which is basically just straight pigment. I'm gonna go ahead and emphasize the dark in the nostrils. And just outline the nose a little bit, and then put an outline underneath the mouth, and a little bit for the muzzle. And all right, step back, take a look at it. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think it all looks pretty good. These outlines, you can tell that they kind of they faded a little bit. That's why I diluted them with water, so that they don't stick out as much as the pure black that's over here in the eyes and the muzzle. So it still helps kind of differentiate a little bit the details, but it doesn't distract. It doesn't look like just a straight outline. Okay, yeah, that was pretty much it. So, yeah, that's, oh wow, 40 minutes. Sorry, that one took a little longer, but the fur itself was kind of more complicated. There's a lot more detail, but hopefully you understood what I was going for with the different layering and the shadows. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. I will try to reply within 24 hours. Also, tag me. I love seeing what people make, the different variations. You do not have to follow this tutorial at all. You can always just do your own thing. And I love seeing what people make. But other than that, thank you for painting with me, and I will see you in the next one.